Fever brand is going to get as big and go as far as Caitlin Clark takes it. And I don't think Kelly Krauskopf understands that. And the latest video that is surfacing, floating around, being consumed by Fever fans across the globe, because this is an international superstar they have on their hands. This may have been the straw that broke the camel's.
The Indiana Fever front office is under fire like never before, and at the heart of it all stands Caitlin Clark, the rookie who has turned the WNBA into must-watch television. What began as a seemingly harmless remark from team president Kelly Krauskopf has spiraled into one of the league's most explosive controversies in recent memory. In a press conference meant to project confidence about the franchise's future, Krauskopf compared the Fever to Apple, a timeless brand bigger than any one individual. But instead of inspiring fans, the words landed like a gut punch. To many, it sounded like she was dismissing the very reason Indiana had suddenly become relevant again. Caitlin Clark wasn't just part of the moment. She was the moment. Within hours, social media erupted. Clips of the comments spread like wildfire. Hashtags trended. Longtime Fever fans, who had endured years of losing seasons, felt betrayed. And then came the silence. No apology, no clarification, only the sudden disappearance of Krauskopf's old Twitter account. That silence spoke volumes. To fans, it wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was proof that leadership didn't understand Clark's value, or worse, didn't want to.
Krauskopf, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you were perfectly fine when Fever fans were bending over, kissing your ass, applauding your decisions, you better stand here and take it when Fever fans are pissed off, upset, and are voicing their displeasures. If our voice mattered that much then, you best believe it matters that much.
The backlash might have ended there if it weren't for what had already been simmering beneath the surface. From her very first WNBA game, Caitlin Clark had been a target. Opponents threw elbows, shoved her off the ball, and delivered cheap shots, yet whistles rarely came. Every night she absorbed punishment, and every night officials looked away. To fans, it was unthinkable. How could the league's brightest rookie, the player single-handedly driving record ticket sales and TV ratings, be left unprotected? The frustration finally exploded when Fever forward Sophie Cunningham decided to say out loud what others would only whisper. On the debut episode of her podcast Show Me Something, she took aim not just at rivals or referees, but at her own organization. Without naming names, Sophie made it clear, some of the disrespect Clark faced came from inside the Fever itself. She described the repeated hits Clark endured, the silence from executives, and the complete lack of public support. Then she delivered the line that shook the league: if leadership won't protect Caitlin Clark, her teammates will. Fans instantly connected to her words, sharing the clip across social media, praising her courage, and reminding everyone of the night she was ejected for delivering a hard foul after Clark took an elbow to the face. That wasn't just a foul. That was a message. A promise. Sophie had drawn a line in the sand, and millions of fans stood with her.
Staying the growth and the interest level in the franchise. I mean, this is about the Indiana Fever. Yes, we have a foundational player in Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston, and we're going to continue to add to that. But I want this team to be the leader in the country, and a brand, an enduring brand, like Apple or something. I mean, this is.
Cunningham's words weren't random frustration; they were a calculated strike. Behind the scenes, insiders revealed that her podcast episode was recorded soon after Krauskopf's Apple remark, turning it into a direct counterpunch. Suddenly, the controversy wasn't just about PR missteps. It was about identity, loyalty, and control inside the Fever organization. Reports began to surface of a divided locker room. One side rallying behind Caitlin Clark, demanding the franchise embrace her as the future, and the other clinging stubbornly to a long-term corporate vision that downplayed her stardom. On the court, the problem was impossible to ignore. Game after game, Clark was battered without consequence. The May 24th showdown against the New York Liberty became the clearest example. With the game on the line, Natasha Cloud rammed straight into Clark, an obvious offensive foul that should have stopped play. Cameras caught it. Fans gasped. Clark spread her arms in disbelief. The referees? Nothing. No whistle. No review. No protection. In the NBA, such a hit on a franchise star would have brought free throws, technicals, maybe even an ejection. In the WNBA, it brought silence. For fans who had sold out arenas coast to coast, cleared shelves of Fever merchandise, and turned social media into a non-stop rally, the message was devastating. Caitlin Clark was carrying the league, yet the league, and her own front office, wasn't carrying her.
This is the WNBA. A star is going to take the Fever where the Fever want to go. And that star is Caitlin Clark. Kelly, you're talking about being a leading brand. You're talking about sustaining growth, sustaining the interest level in the franchise. You know how that happens? Is if Caitlin Clark stays in Indiana, is if Caitlin Clark is participating in an entertaining and exciting brand of basketball that doesn't take away and diminish her skill sets, that doesn't turn off fans that have been following her for the last 3 to 5.
And that is the core of the crisis. Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the brand. She is the brand. She is the reason every home game is a sellout, the reason national TV ratings have soared, the reason casual fans are suddenly buying WNBA jerseys. Ignoring that reality doesn't look like strategy. It looks like incompetence. From a deleted social media account, to a teammate's viral podcast, to uncalled fouls every single night, all of it exposes one truth. Something is broken in Indiana. Leadership sees the Fever as a corporate product, but the players and fans see it as Caitlin Clark's team. And when those two visions collide, only one can survive. Sophie Cunningham said it best: if leadership won't act, the players will. That warning now hangs over the Fever like a storm cloud. Fans aren't just watching basketball anymore. They are watching a power struggle play out in real time. At this crossroads, Indiana has two choices: embrace their generational star and build the franchise around her, or cling to outdated visions and risk losing more than games. They could lose the trust of the fans who made this moment possible. In a league still fighting for relevance, that is a gamble the Fever simply cannot afford. The Indiana Fever, once a forgotten franchise barely surviving at the bottom of the WNBA standings, suddenly became the center of the basketball universe when Caitlin Clark arrived, a rookie whose very presence transformed empty seats into sold-out arenas and pushed TV ratings to levels the league had never imagined. Yet instead of fully embracing this once-in-a-generation phenomenon, the Fever's leadership managed to ignite a storm of controversy that refuses to fade away, beginning with one seemingly careless remark from team president Kelly Kroskoff, who compared the organization to Apple, a brand bigger than any one product or person. A comment that might have sounded harmless in a boardroom but landed like an insult in the ears of fans who had waited years for relevance and finally had it in the form of Caitlin Clark. Because the truth is simple: Apple without the iPhone isn't Apple, and the Fever without Clark would still be stuck in obscurity. And that's why within hours of her statement the internet exploded, clips went viral, hashtags trended, and longtime fans who had endured countless losing seasons felt not pride but betrayal. And as if to confirm that this wasn't just a slip of the tongue but a deeper problem, Kroskoff went silent, her old Twitter account suddenly disappearing without explanation, leaving behind a vacuum that fans filled with anger, suspicion, and a belief that leadership not only misunderstood Clark's value but perhaps didn't want to accept it at all. And that silence, the refusal to clarify, apologize, or even acknowledge the backlash, spoke louder than words, creating a narrative that has only grown stronger with time, a narrative of incompetence at the very top of the Fever organization. But the crisis didn't stop with one executive's comment, because from the very first game of her professional career, Clark had been targeted in ways that stunned casual viewers. Elbows to the ribs, forearms to the chest, shoves off the ball, cheap shots during drives. All met with referees who swallow their whistles, turning what should have been highlight reels into blooper reels of missed calls. And fans who had tuned in to celebrate her talent were instead forced to watch her absorb punishment night after night. And the outrage only intensified because everyone knew exactly what was happening. Clark was the rookie phenomenon threatening old hierarchies, the star drawing bigger crowds than veterans ever had, the face of the league before she had even finished her first month. And instead of being protected as a franchise cornerstone, she was left exposed, taking hits that would never have been tolerated in the NBA, where stars like LeBron James or Stephen Curry receive whistles for far less. And into this atmosphere of physical abuse and organizational silence stepped Sophie Cunningham, a Fever teammate who refused to play politics, launching her podcast Show Me Something and delivering one of the most powerful player-led statements in recent WNBA history, carefully worded yet unmistakably direct. Because without naming names, Sophie made it clear that Clark's struggles were not just the fault of rivals or referees but also the product of leadership's refusal to protect her. And she reminded fans of her own ejection earlier in the season when, After watching Clark take a brutal elbow to the face, she retaliated with a hard foul. A moment that wasn't about violence but about loyalty, a moment that said, "If no one else will stand up for Caitlyn, I will." And when Sophie told her audience that if leadership wouldn't act, teammates would, fans erupted with applause, flooding social media with praise, calling her the enforcer Clark needed, the protector. The front office refused to be, and that podcast episode, strategically released in the aftermath of Kroskoff's Apple comment, transformed an internal locker room frustration into a public counterattack, sparking headlines, debates, and a clear division between those who still defended the franchise vision and those who believed the Fever was failing the very player who had saved them from irrelevance. As reports emerged of a split locker room, some players backing Clark as the face of the future while others clung to a corporate message about team identity, the divide played out in real time on the court, none more obvious than during the May 24th showdown against the New York Liberty, when Natasha Cloud barreled into Clark late in the game, delivering what looked to fans like an obvious offensive foul, the kind of collision that in the NBA would have drawn a whistle, free throws, maybe, even a review. But in the WNBA drew nothing at all, no whistle, no explanation, just stunned gasps from the crowd and a look of disbelief from Clark as she spread her arms wide, silently asking the referees the same question every fan was asking from home. How much more could she take without protection? How many more hits before someone decided enough was enough? And when the replay spread across social media, it became the latest piece of evidence in a growing case against the league and the Fever front office, proof that Clark was being allowed to suffer because those in power either didn't understand her value or didn't want to accept that she was bigger than their brand, and that, in the eyes of fans, was the ultimate betrayal. Because Caitlyn Clark isn't just a part of the Fever's story, she is the story, the reason tickets sell out, the reason jerseys fly off shelves, the reason national broadcasts break viewership records, the reason little girls across the country dream of playing in the WNBA. And to downplay that, to dismiss it with analogies about Apple, or to ignore it with silence after dangerous collisions, is not strategy but failure, not leadership but incompetence. And now the Fever finds itself at a crossroads unlike any in recent league history, where the choice is brutally simple: embrace Clark, protect her, build around her as the generational star she already is, or risk alienating the very fans who lifted the franchise from obscurity and losing the trust of a public that has proven its loyalty with sold-out arenas and viral clips. Because if they fail, if they continue to treat Caitlyn Clark as just another player in just another era, then the words Sophie Cunningham spoke will become prophecy, that if leadership won't act, the players will, and if players are forced to step in, the divide within the Fever will only deepen, turning what could have been a dynasty built around a legend into a cautionary tale of how arrogance and incompetence destroyed the gift of a lifetime. And as the season marches on, every foul ignored, every controversial comment, every deleted social media account only adds to the sense that the Fever are no longer just fighting for wins on the court but for their very identity. Because in the end, this is bigger than basketball, bigger than one player or one executive. This is about respect, loyalty, and the simple truth that sometimes the most powerful thing a franchise can do is protect the star who protects its future. And until Indiana understands that, the storm will only grow darker. And Caitlyn Clark's journey from college icon to professional legend will remain overshadowed not by her own failures but by the failures of those who were supposed to stand beside her.